good afternoon, everyone. I hope you're enjoying your lunch, right? We love to do these little classes on a consistent basis, mainly because it helps get good education out there. Now, one of the unique things that we've noticed along the way is multiple times people ask us the same questions. Actually, they're very basic questions. Things like, well, how do we actually get that house under contract? How is it that we actually purchase the property using our IRA? What is it like to go through a lender, go through the process of, just borrowing money to purchase any type of asset? So today's class is actually going to be more of a basics level, but not a basics level in the aspect of us teaching you all about self-directed IRAs, but a basics class in how to use an IRA to purchase a property. So what we did is we went above and beyond. We brought in a lender to walk through the process of taking a loan and exactly what that application will look like and things to look out for. In addition, we brought in a high experience realtor that everyone out there will be able to utilize on a consistent basis for any properties you're considering looking at purchasing in the state of Texas. So ultimately, everything we talk about today is really just for your guys' information. Leverage the chat box. We have a couple of different moderators. And then at the end of this, we're going to tie it all back into IRAs and even talk about some up and coming events that we also have. So with that being said, we're going to dive right on in. And I like to call this class the basics to buying investment properties. And it's funny because as we've been going through this entire process, I haven't always been a real estate investor. As a matter of fact, I didn't purchase my first real estate investment property. I did notes prior, but I didn't buy my first property until 2018. So it's funny because we've actually done a lot of background work prior to that, doing notes, being a lender, doing multifamily deals and those type of things. But now we're actually into the buying and owning of the physical properties, really for diversification purposes. Once again, guys, we always want to make sure we're giving a quick disclaimer. Remember, everything is only for your education. I can't give tax, legal, investment advice, anything along those lines. This information is just for you to take to the bank and say, hey, this is what I've been taught. And if you have questions, reach out to us and let us know. With that being said, I always like to start off and talk about what is it that we're going to learn today. So we're going to start off by figuring out how we can actually make offers on these type of properties and where to find them, right? We're going to talk and look at what does it look like when you purchase a property versus the IRA, why I argue that you should be using the IRA in many cases, even though the example I'm going to show you is actually me personally looking at buying a property, and lastly, how to get started or get more education down the road. So we're going to start with the IRA basics first, so that way we have a good foundation, and then we'll talk about and figure out how to buy the property. I like to go over everything on how the IRS views everybody out there. I say the IRS puts us into two categories. One being a taxable category, the other being a non-taxable category. Remember, you're going to fall into one of these two categories no matter what. So what is a taxable category? This is usually you as an individual, right? You work a job, you work W-2, 1099, Schedule C, you make money, you have to pay your taxes. Therefore, if you set up an LLC, a C Corp, an S Corp, a trust, all of these you see here on the screen are also considered taxable entities. So if all of these are considered taxable entities, then any profit you make must be taxed. But there are considered non-taxable entities that we can do the same type of thing. Now, anytime I say this, I always get the questions of it being a church, a nonprofit organization, a charity. Sure, all of those can be considered non-taxable. But did you know a self-directed IRA, a solo 401k, or a QRP plan are also considered non-taxable entities? As a matter of fact, many times they have to file the same tax return a church would. So think about that for a minute. I can use my self-directed IRA and do the exact same investments you're already considering and avoiding all of the taxes. So let's see what that looks like. Now, if we want to set up a self-directed IRA, I think we really need to figure out what it is. So what is a self-directed IRA? Guys, it's made up. It's just a marketing term. Self-directed IRAs actually don't mean anything, all right? What it comes down to is the custodian or the bank that lets you invest in what you want, what you'd like to. As an example, if I have a self-directed IRA at Fidelity, I can only invest in what Fidelity says. Things like stocks, bonds, CDs, mutual funds. So if you set up a self-directed IRA with Quest, you can only invest in things like real estate. This could be buying actual real property, doing notes, investing into some sort of syndication. All of these things are considered to be a self-directed investment. Which one's better or worse? Fidelity or us? Neither. Notice if you want to buy Apple stock, you have to go to Fidelity. If you want to buy property, you have to come to us. So don't think that self-directed is actually something real. It's actually just a marketing term that we utilize. Now, there's a lot of benefits to using a self-directed IRA, the first one being diversification. Now, that really, when I say this, people feel like they have a good diversified portfolio. They feel like, hey, I have a portfolio and it's invested in stocks, bonds, and mutual funds and annuities. The problem is all of that is a public market. So I say let's take some of that public funds and move it to the private sector. This is why you have real diversification then. And this is why we want to listen from these up-and-coming speakers that talk about where you can find these up-and-coming investments. The real reason to use a self-directed IRA, though, I think is for the tax savings. All of us out there, we are looking to do investments, and you should be doing everything you can to minimize that taxation the best you can. I love to give the example of I personally do a fix and flip, and I make $10,000 on a fix and flip. I don't really get to keep 10 grand. As a matter of fact, usually at least 20% goes to capital gains. So that means I'm really only going to make $8,000. But if I use my retirement account to do the exact same deal, I could have all of those earnings 100% tax-free. That's the real benefit. Lastly, is something I like to call investing in what you know best. Now, what do I mean by that? All of you guys are here on a class learning about real estate. Then why is it if I ask someone out there if they have a 401k, they have it all invested in the stock market, if they're interested in learning about real estate? Most of the time it's because you didn't know this was an option. So I say, let's take those retirement plans and let's actually put it towards something that you are actually going out and learning. If you're out there and you're trying to learn how to do the stock market stuff, great. Take your retirement account and invest there. But if you're here on this class, that means you want to learn how to be a proper real estate investor. Therefore, I argue take that money and invest in real estate. Now, there's 7 types of plans that can be self-directed, right? Remember that just being a marketing term. The most popular are the ones you see on the personal side, that traditional IRA or a Roth IRA. Both the other presenters we're going to have come on here in just a minute actually have Roth IRAs with us. So I love to hear their take on just, what they kind of look at outside of their IRA, inside of their IRA, etc. Okay. With that, you do have employer plans such as SEP Simples and solo 401ks, and even specialty accounts. If you're out there and you have a health savings account or a Coverdell account for a child, any one of these plans you can use self-directed and invest in real estate. Now, remember, all of these retirement accounts you see on the screen can do any investment almost and avoid 100% of the taxation. So if my retirement account can avoid all these taxes, the IRS is going to put some big restrictions on things that you cannot do. They don't want to see you abusing this power. So what are those restrictions? It always comes down to people restrictions, transaction restrictions, and investment restrictions. So for real estate investors, the most important one is actually going to be the people restrictions. And the IRS says there's key people I can't take my IRA and invest into. Who is that? We call them disqualified people. The first person is me. I can't take an IRA and buy myself a house and go live in it. That's not an investment, guys. That's a homestead. I can't take my IRA and lend myself money. Guys, that's me benefiting from that IRA. But that's okay. It's not what you're trying to do. You're just trying to take your IRA and buy an investment property. So never mix your cash with the IRA's cash. They don't say just you. They also give us this fun little list. It is not your job to memorize it. That is my job. So I always break it down. You, spouse, parents, and kids. My IRA can't buy a house for my spouse, right? And say, oh, it's not for me, it's for her. Come on, guys. The IRS is not that dumb. I can't take my IRA money and lend it to my kids to start a new business. Doesn't work. You're not going to sit here and sue your kids because their business failed. So the IRS doesn't like that. And it's not just you, spouse, parents, kids. It's also if you have a company. So you can't just say, oh, I got an idea, I'm going to set up an LLC. Once again, the IRS is not that dumb. So if you have questions about this, reach out to an IRA specialist. That's why I'm here. Okay. So with that being said, guys, don't forget that you cannot buy, sell, trade, loan, extend services between a disqualified person and your IRA, and that includes directly or indirectly. If you do, it creates what they call a prohibited transaction, and the IRS is going to come after you. So be very careful. Don't toe this line. And if you have questions about it, ask a professional, and we're here to help out. Okay? So I like this. Look, you can reach out to an IRA specialist at any point in time. Woo, look at that. Now, that being said, let's actually get this presentation started. So one of the cool things that we wanted to talk about today was figuring out, where do I start if I'm going to be investing into properties, right? And I want to, whether I use my IRA or me personally, okay? So I like to say there's certain steps to buying a property. And I put these steps up here, but we're going to bring up a gentleman by the name of Chris. Let's see if Chris is on. Nope. Hold on. Let's see. Paul, are you on here? I don't see Paul. Hey, Victor, if you can do me a favor and just call Paul, all right? And or email Paul and see if he's jumping on. Thanks. So during this process right here, guys, so the steps to buying a property, I like to say first we need to get a pre-approval letter. Now, what do I mean by that? You'll hear from my agent that she doesn't want to waste her time showing me a house if I'm looking to debt leverage a property. Now, if I have cash to buy it, that's fine. But a lot of us out there, we don't have the full cash to buy a property and rehab it. We need a lender in place. So before I ever go through the motions of reaching out to my realtor, I want to have a pre-approval letter. So with that pre-approval letter, now I need to find a house. So we're talking about how we find the house, right, that we're going to be looking for. Then we need to contact our agent. So a lot of times people put a lot of things first before they ever are contacting the agent, whereas notice it's further down the list. Lastly, we need to make an offer and hope it gets accepted. So we're going to start with some of those fun stuff. Does the work same with the condominiums and rental properties? Absolutely. Everything I'm talking about right now, and that's a great question for the realtor that will be coming on. Her name's Danielle. But I think she would argue that no matter what, whether you're buying a house personally, buying it in an IRA, buying a condominium, you should always be getting a pre-approval letter first. B, make sure you did your due diligence along the way. And we'll talk about that as well. So what we're going to do real quick is we are going to go ahead and actually go through the motions of getting a real pre-approval letter. That's right. I want to get pre-approved. I want to make sure that I can go through these motions and actually get a letter approving me for a loan. So what we're going to do is, and I went with blank lending. You can go with Investor Loan Source. You can go with Jet Lending. You can go with a lot of different lenders out there. They can get you this pre-approval letter just as fast as this. So watch. And remember, I'm not going to have my credit pulled yet, but it will have to get pulled in the future if the IRA is not the one taking the loan. If the IRA is taking the loan, we don't need to have our credit pulled. So let's see what this looks like. I want to get pre-approved. What's nice is we can go through this very quickly, and you guys will see that as we go through these motions, right? So do I want instant pre-approval, or do I want to complete the full application? If you complete the full application, that's where they're going to ask for things like your social, your date of birth. They may pull your credit, those type of things. So we just want the instant pre-approval. And the realtor here coming on in just a minute will talk about why this is good and bad both, but we'll talk about that in just a second. So as we get our instant pre-approval, we're going to go ahead and just enter in my information. Am I going to be buying it, or is my company going to be buying it? If I put my company's name on here, which we'll just go ahead and say IRA 123, just for a test example, right? Notice we're going to all through all these. Do I already have a property selected? No, I haven't really picked out one yet, but I'm maybe looking in the 77084 area code. Why? That's the address right here around the Quest office, but notice you can put anything you'd like. Well, what type of loan would you like? Are we looking for a conventional, FHA, VA? Usually these are for personal homes. Me buying a home, not as an investment property, right? But actually as a more long-term type deal. You can do private money loans, hard money loans, reverse mortgages, or maybe you're just trying to refinance. So what we're going to do, I'm going to say private money. This means that it is actually based off a private lender. So they might have additional requirements, but we'll deal with that in just a minute. What's the pre-approval amount that we're looking for? Honestly, in Houston, I feel like an average house, if it's going to be for an investment, should be probably right around $200,000. So that's what we'll do, right? Desired loan term. Let's just go ahead and say other. What's my credit score? Let's go ahead and say I have a 720 credit score. Income. How'd you hear about us? Always say Quest, right? Because we're the best. How much do I want to put down? Let's go ahead and do 15% down. I think that's pretty average. How much income do you receive annually? I don't know, guys. Let's make up some numbers on here. We're going to say I make 150 grand a year. All right. And how much money do I have in liquid assets? What does this mean? Not just cash in the bank, but maybe if I have stocks or mutual funds. So we're just going to say in between 15 and 50,000. Is there a loan officer? I love Kelsey. She's always been my loan officer anytime I go through this. And I click submit. Okay. So now that I've submitted this pre-approval letter, let's see how fast we can get one. Boop, 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 boop. Bam. We respect your time and privacy. Thank you. Please check your email. And I should have one right away. So I love this aspect. Let's see. Waiting for my emails to come in. Actually, I don't know what email address I put there. We'll show you what the pre-approval letter looks like here in just a minute. So with that being said, notice this was actually really simple. I always think, and here's just a screenshot of a different pre-approval letter I got back in July. It's now August, all right? But you can find any local lender that you might be considering. This holds true in any state out there that you're looking at. Your pre-approval letter will look something very similar to this. Derreck Long was the applicant. I did in this one, I had a property in mind. Here's my phone number, loan, all this good stuff, right? We love this aspect. Let's see, I got some questions popping up. What do we got? Similar question, buying a second home. We live upstairs part-time and rent the basement. This is actually, Marianne, going to be more based on the lender if you're getting a loan, right? If you're going to be renting that out, you probably need to talk with a property manager, not necessarily a realtor. So I hope that helps. I have a question here from Belinda. What if you're retired and you don't have income W-2? That's okay. That was just the option I chose on there. Your lenders will work with you. Now, if you have zero income coming in, not even counting investments, right? I don't have any investments coming in. Then you probably want to have a lot of liquid assets. Think of it like a balloon, right? If I squeeze this aspect, the balloon inflates here. No matter what, you're going to have to figure out what works well for you and works well for your lender. I teach a completely separate class, right, on what it looks like to be a lender and how to find a good private lender and what it looks like to be a good borrower. And we kind of play with that little balloon in that class. Are there pre-approval letters on the website, or is this just one partnered with Quest? This company I mentioned up here is not partnered with Quest, all right? This is just one I went to their website that we've seen a lot of people utilize. So I do like this company, but there is plenty out there. Like I said, there's Investor Loan Source, and this pre-approval letter is not on the Quest website by no means. I noticed I went to this one, blinklending.com. Does the loan have to be non-recourse if the IRA is buying it? Absolutely, it does. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. But if the IRA is borrowing money, then the loan 100% needs to be non-recourse. What does that mean? Your credit score is not involved. So if a lender is going to give you a loan based off not your credit, they want more liquid assets. You can't go to a lender and say, hey, we're going to put 5% down. They're going to ask for 20% and above. That is very normal. But any lender I have here on the screen can do a non-recourse loan to you. And there's so many more out there. Just Google non-recourse loans in your local area. Okay. Does an annuity count as a liquid asset? It could. So great questions, Belinda. Man, you're killing it. So an annuity could count as a liquid asset. This depends on how long you held it and if your financial institution will allow you to cash it in. But what it does count for is that typically annuities do pay some sort of monthly or quarterly distributions. So that always looks really good on any type of report as creditors look at that. So I love to see that. To confirm, if I open a Quest account with a transfer from Fidelity, do I have to sell the stocks? Absolutely you do, Drew. So my IRA at Fidelity is invested in stocks. My IRA at Quest would have to be invested in real estate. So in order to move the cash over to buy a property, you would have to sell the stocks, you know? So what's nice is we allow you to set up an account with no cash balance. So Danielle, I know you're waiting. So guys, I got a ton of questions on here. We're going to get to all of these, but I really want to respect our other speakers' time that's coming on. And this is going to be Danielle. So what's unique about Danielle, right, is in these cases is, hi, Danielle.
Hey, everybody. Thank you, Derek, for having me on.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to mention as we talk about this is an email I have up here. And what's funny is I sent you this email on July 26th, and me and my wife are looking at this property. And you've helped us with multiple other properties before, including our homestead that we purchased last year. And you've been such a big help to us that I wanted to just kind of bring you on. So one of the things I like to mention is, like, if someone's looking for a house, they need to be typically looking in certain areas, watch for influxes, reach out to a good realtor, and be patient. So based off that, and just before we keep moving on, do you have any other advice or any other education maybe you can give to someone in these areas?
Definitely. I mean, so whenever you're looking out for an investment property, you definitely want to get your pre-approval first so you know what budget you're working with. If you're going to do like a conventional loan, or if it's going to be a hard money loan, because that's going to make a big difference on your take home and then the numbers that you're working. So whenever you are interested in locating that investment property, you want to see, do I want to do a fix or flip? Or is it going to be a rental? So that's whenever the agent could come in and do comps on the areas to make sure that you're coming out on the plus side. What material do you use for your beard?
Thank you for the question. We'll get to that one later. Sorry, Danielle.
No, it's okay. But yeah, so whenever Derek reached out, and Alyssa, also his wife, I want to look out for their best interests. So before the appointment, we were definitely looking at the rental prices to make sure that the loan amount is not over exceeding what's actually going on. So go ahead, Derek.
No, yeah. So actually on that, notice when we started looking at this property, we noticed the sale price was $209,000. Now, what's really unique is, as we've been watching this, we actually got another email and we realized that the price dropped down to 190. So once this price dropped, I reached out to you. And what did you do the minute I reached out to you?
I reached out to the agent and his phone was disconnected.
You guys
but we set up an appointment.
She reached out to the seller's agent and his phone was disconnected.
Yeah,
not a good sign.
No, not at all. But we were able to go ahead and schedule an appointment. I also looked at other properties that were in the area around the similar price range because I wanted to give them options, because I knew that, you know, whenever you're going to look at these homes, the photos look very nice, but whenever we actually saw it in person, there's wood rot on the siding and the framing, which would definitely not approve for a FHA loan. You would definitely have to go conventional or hard money on that. So that's a good thing to think about whenever you are getting your loan. If it's any broken windows or wood rot, you do need to have a conventional or a hard money loan, but it did not look as good as it did in the photos. So whenever we went in there, it needed baseboards and a whole lot of remodeling and rehab. It would have cost, what do you think, Derek, about $50,000? And we both have investment properties and went through remodel phases. So having that experience and knowing it's not going to take $10,000 to $15,000, it's probably closer to $40,000 to $50,000. Then that takes a big part. And if you're trying to flip it and not have the time to just hold it, then you might be in the negative. So
that's correct. Now, I know that, so obviously you scheduled this showing, but you did something that was really unique. Is not only did you schedule the showing, but you also said, hey, we can schedule other showings in the same neighborhood. So if you want, we can look at multiple different properties at the same time. And it kind of gives you a good idea then what the houses are in the neighborhood. So do you always do that for all your clients?
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna drive and go look at a house, you might as well go see a couple of them to make it worth it, and then that way it gives you a good idea of what's going on in the market and how the houses compare to each other. Because if one is just maybe 10 or 15,000 above the one that you're already looking at, but that one needs 50,000, it might be worth it in your finances to go with one that has a little bit more fixer-upper, less work to do, even though the loan is gonna be a little bit higher originally, but you're not gonna spend as much cash on the end. So,
That's right. Now, one thing we showed up there and you said, hey, let's not discuss numbers while we're here. And you were very forward with me about that.
yeah,
Why were we
and
not
there was a ring.
discussing numbers?
Yep, there was a ring door camera, a ring bell camera right at the front door, so you never know if they're active or on, and they could be listening. And in the state of Texas, there's only a one party that needs to know that they're being recorded, which could be the person recording. So you don't know if they have hidden mics in the homes. And I always tell my clients, even if you're out by the mailbox, they could have it something in the a speaker in the mailbox, because a lot of times you'll go look at a home and then the clients will discuss outside the property. So it's better to just do it in the vehicle or over a phone call later on, or make sure you're kind of away from the property.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I thought this was actually really unique because I'm one of those people where like, I don't care about my info or something like that. Like everyone can have it, like, and you're like, hey, this could actually affect you getting the property. So I
Yeah,
think this is
especially if
really,
you really like it and then you're already giving away what's in your back pocket. It's like,
yeah.
I'm willing to pay full price or go five over. And that wasn't the case in this one. But then if you're negotiating, they'll know if you're willing to go up or not. So it's better to just talk about it a little bit later.
And I know on other properties afterwards, what we've actually gone and done is sat in your car, correct? Like
Hmm.
we've just sat in
Yep.
your car and we've discussed kind of what we're looking and you took some notes and then we went and looked at the next house, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah, it's a new time and age. There's so much technology going around, so you have to be on the lookout for it.
Now, the next thing you told me is make sure that you had your contractor ready because you were right. We went and looked at this house that was listed for 190. That house was not even close to being livable, right? It
Yes,
was
it needed a lot of
brutal.
work.
It needed so
Even to
much
rent it
work.
out, yeah, it needed
Yeah.
baseboards and it needed a remedy on a lot of the flooring. And so even on photos, you can't tell if that laminate, it looks nice in the photos, but then you get there, you could just see it's deteriorating, and nobody's going to want to rent whenever you need to replace it. And flooring is top of my top five. I call it Fear P: foundation, electrical, AC, got roofing, and plumbing. So flooring is a big one, and foundation. They can really add up.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to bring up the contract. So, guys, this is actually the exact contract that Danielle drafted up for me for the most recent property we made an offer with. Now, notice in this one, I labeled Sunny Home Buyers, which is me and my wife's company, as the buyer. If we wanted to use our IRA, right there in that highlighted section, all you do is you put your IRA's legal name. That's it. That is how you go through the motion buying a property if your IRA. That one section is instead of your personal name, your business name, you put your IRA's name. Now, I highlighted something else down there. And Danielle, I listed and I told you I wanted to make an offer for the price I listed there below. And we both knew going into it, this was a lowball offer and they're
Mhm.
not going to accept it. Is that
Yeah.
correct?
Yes, we did know that.
So now you did give me a recommendation though on increasing that just a couple of bucks. And why did you wanted me to put it at 153, which I think was actually good education in that area. So why was it that you wanted me to jump up that price?
Okay, so psychologically, Derek was choosing 152,996, but whenever you do, so you have the cash portion, I believe it was 10%, you're seeing that it's coming out to like $15,299.60. So just in the real estate world, usually we just deal in whole dollars, and incorporating cents, it just looks a little funky on the on there. And then whenever you go down to the next page on the earnest money, you're doing a 1% of this, which would also leave in a cent. So I was convincing him, let's just do an even 153, but he is the client, so I was like, okay, we'll go for it.
So I love
We'll
this
do it.
aspect because I am very thick-headed, guys. Anyone
Uh-huh.
who's ever worked with me knows I'm very stubborn. I really, really am. And poor Danielle.
Mhm.
Okay.
No, it's okay.
But I think she did the right thing. So ultimately, here's what she did: is Danielle said, "Hey, I'm making this recommendation," but she
Mhm.
also said, However, you're my client, and if this is really what you want and you don't want to do what I'm recommending, that is on you. You know, and so she still put the numbers I want up there. And I think this is important because a lot of times agents out there, they're not looking out for the client's best interest. And I think that's what you did here is you're like, hey, I think this would look better if we went this way. The fact that I'm stubborn and thick-headed, don't be that way, guys. Don't take my advice, right? Because Danielle's been a great realtor during this whole process, and not just with me, but with multiple other people.
Thank you.
Now, you did mention a couple other things as far as earnest money. So with the contract price we have up there of 100, or let's just round it to 153,000.
So the earnest money will be 1%. And this is pretty much a good faith showing that the seller is basically taking their property off of the market to put it into option pending. And so since it is no longer on the market, you as the buyer is putting that 1% in good faith that you are going through with the contract and you plan on purchasing the property. So in that case, it will be $1,530. And then the option period. So that is your option period / inspection period. And that is usually 7 to 10 days, just depending on how long you feel you need. And that's whenever your inspector will go out. And even though you know it's a full rehab, there's things that an inspector will find that maybe you don't know. So for your protection, always get an inspection. That's what I always say. And so you have that 7 to 10 windows, and it might be about $200, but you'll see some sellers asking for additional maybe $300, or if you even see as high as $500 just to have that inspection period. Both of those fees will go towards your closing costs at the end. You will not be able to get your option fee back. That is something that the seller will hold on to if you decide to back out of the property, but your earnest money is something you can receive back, and even all the way up to 3 days before closing if you have a third-party financing addendum and saying that you need to be able to get approved in order to close on the property. But if for some reason you're not approved, you can also get that in earnest money back.
So with that being said then too, let's just assume, all right, that the client accepted this contract that we had up here on the screen, right? So they accepted that contract. Now we actually have the house under contract, right? So now that I have it under contract, I have a reasonable aspect to buy it. And over the next 10 days, that next 10 days, is that when I should be scheduling my inspection or appraisal or like?
Right. Okay. So say you just get the contract accepted. It's day 0. Day 0, you want to start hiring, or your agent and yourself, you can start booking that inspector to go because you're on a time crunch. The first 7 days, you're getting it inspected and you're doing negotiations based off of the repairs or the credit that you find. On the contract, you're saying that you're accepting it as is, contingent of the inspection. So you still get that done. And whatever you may find, you can your agent can negotiate a lower price depending on what they find. So you can hopefully get a credit towards your sellers, your buyer closing costs. And once you do negotiate on those terms, now your inspection period is finished. And now you're on day 8, probably the next day after your 7-day window. That's whenever I recommend to order the appraisal, because you don't want to spend more money on an appraisal that might cost about $650+ on something that you're not sure if you're going to move forward with if that seller doesn't agree with the terms that you provided. So after the option / inspection period is over is whenever you'll order the appraisal. Once the appraisal comes in and everything looks good, or if it doesn't, you might have to negotiate some more terms to get back down to that price. Then you want to go ahead and order the survey. So usually it's within that first, like you said, 10 to 15 days, first the inspection, the negotiations on those repairs or a credit, then you order the appraisal. So you're not spending more money on the appraisal before you know, and then survey.
So my issue with this right here and everything you mentioned is it seems like I have a really, really small window to actually schedule all this stuff done. And I hear people all the time say like, hey, I don't want to use a realtor, da, 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 da. But if I get this house under contract and I have this small window to get like the inspection and go through that option period real quick, do you have like those people in your back pocket, Danielle? Do you have inspectors that you consistently work with, or appraisers in these cases, or surveyors in those cases?
Right. So I do have a list of inspectors that I can refer. I always recommend for the buyer to do their due diligence and look at different inspectors because they're all different and they all offer different services. So it's not my liability in case maybe they miss something, right? They're human and everything. So I don't want to hold liability if I'm giving out. I will still always give 3 referrals out, but I recommend that, if you have your own inspector, feel free to hire them. And then also, you were mentioning that some don't like to use an agent. I will say that whenever you are using an agent to buy a property or rent a property, it is complimentary to the buyer. So the seller is covering the fees for your buyer's agent. So I don't know why you wouldn't want to use one whenever it's covered because they're looking after your best interest. If you were just to go with a listing agent, they're representing the seller and want the highest dollar amount for their seller. So I would say go ahead and use an agent just so you're making sure that you have somebody looking out for your best interest.
And I would agree with that, right? I really would. And
Mhm.
it's one of the reasons, too, that I wanted to bring you on, Danielle. You've actually helped us with so many properties. So I have your contact information up here on the screen. If anyone wants to get in contact with you or needs help, so I have a phone number up here for you and an email if it's going to pop up or populate. Go bloop, bloop, bloop.
Thank you. Yes.
Let's see. It's not
Okay,
coming.
email,
There it
text,
goes.
call. Oh,
Yeah.
we got a realtor at REALTOR.
Oh, look at that. Realtor spelled wrong. Don't use that email.
That's okay.
My fault. That was actually my typo, not hers.
And that is the way you spell my name, just to throw it out there, and it's pronounced Danielle, so you got it. I know for anybody that first meets me, they're like, Danielle, is this spelled correctly? Yes, it's spelled correctly. It's just unique.
See what happens when I try to put together a slide real fast last minute?
Yeah, no, you did good.
All right. Well, Danielle, thanks so much for coming on. Make sure you guys reach out to her. I'm going to put her phone number one more time here in the chat box just for everyone that has attended. And
I want to add one little last tidbit too before I know we were kind of going over the process. I do always want to recommend to do a final walkthrough right before you close on the property, just because just in case there's anything that goes on that day of, I always walk my properties with my clients right before the closing, not the day before, not the week of, the day before closing, the hour before we head to the closing table, because I've heard horror stories that maybe they took all the light bulbs or Hurricane Harvey came the previous day. So that's just, I always like to CYA, right? You always have to just double check and do a walkthrough. Don't pass out on those.
So notice, guys, you want someone that understands how to be an investor. You want someone that understands how to use an IRA for this stuff. And you want someone that will always look out for your best interest, which is why I wanted to bring her on here. So she's worked with me for a couple of years now and has always done a great job. So, and she's a real estate investor herself too. I think that's important because being a real estate investor, there's nothing like doing what you're preaching, like the first time you had to deal with a crappy tenant or deal with a contractor or a rehabber is completely different than just talking about it. Would you agree?
Learning experience.
Yeah. So thanks, Danielle. Make sure
thank
all
you,
you
Derreck.
guys her phone number and email are right down there on the screen. I see that Juan, our moderator, corrected your email address. Is that the correct one?
Thank you, Juan. Y'all guys have a great week.
Yes.
Look forward to continuing the education.
Woo! Thanks, Danielle. Bye, guys. So with that being said, we're going to continue on with then, if we're going to go through all this aspect, why do we use this in our IRA and how should we be going about it? Remember, if I'm buying a home, it's not my name on the contract. If I want to use my IRA, it's the IRA's name. That is all that is changing. That's it. If I'm taking a loan, the IRA's name is in the loan. It is best in these cases if the IRA is the one that provides the earnest money, but sometimes you got to get it done quick. So if you provide it, that's okay. I always tell people it's best if you have the IRA do it. Remember, your IRA has its own legal name. Your IRA has its own legal address. Use that name on the contract if you want to use your IRA in any one of these investments. Okay? Why are we using our IRA? Where's your money? Sometimes we have more money sitting in that retirement account than our own checking account. Well, if I want to buy a property, then let's use those IRAs for it. What are your plans with the property? Remember, Every investment we do using the IRA can avoid the taxes. If it did the fix and flip, if it held it as a rental, if those rents were coming in as income, they come back to the IRA tax-free. If you did the fix and flip, it's tax-free. So we can actually avoid our capital gains by using the IRA. I think this is huge, guys, and it's such a big aspect that people seem to miss when they're like, oh, but I want to use it in my personal name. Why? Let's use the IRA. There are times to do it personally, but in many cases, the IRA can make more sense. So I want to end this conversation talking about our multifamily summit coming up in Dallas. The reason why is right now, multifamily has been blowing up. I know today was all about single family homes and getting properties under contracts and what did it look like and getting that pre-approval letter, and getting with the right agent like Danielle. But a lot of you out there as well have been looking so much in the multifamily and looking into investing in those syndications. So Quest wanted to host a one-day event in person only in Dallas. All right. So I have a QR code up there. If you would like to attend this event, all right, I'm going to put that little link right there just to make it easy for people to grab. This is the place to be. This is the number one event that will be going on in Dallas in the month of August, right? It is only 11 days away. Make sure you're there. We're going to have multiple different speakers that are all going to be educating you on different areas, on the foreclosure rates that could be happening in multifamily, why it makes sense, and the best ways to make money in these aspects. If you want to attend this event, send me an email, right, at IRA Specialist, that's with an S at the end, at questtrust.com. Give us a call. You can scan the QR code if you see right there on the screen. But we are here to help you guys out 100%. So I just want to make sure everyone out there has that information. If you like these type of classes where we bring in experts and walk you through those aspects, do me a favor. Email IRA Specialist at questtrust.com and let us know that you like this style of class, because we want to know. Hey, Juan, put it that. Yeah, there it is. That's what I was looking for. Put that email. If you like this style of teaching, if you like this style of education in class, email us and let us know. We want to make sure that you get the best education possible without someone selling you on an investment. Too many times you get these guys, you go to an event elsewhere and you have to pay all this money for a coaching program and all this money to, for something else that you're being sold, when you can get good education on this platform. So all I'm asking is send me an email saying, hey, Derek, we like that class, that style. And if you didn't, send that email anyway. Say, hey, we didn't like that style. Maybe you can bring in and focus more on one specific topic or something like that. I'm okay with that. Let me know so I can make these classes better for you. Lastly, reach out to Danielle, reach out to a good lender, and always use your IRA when possible for investments to avoid taxation. And I'll see you at the Elite Multifamily Summit. So thanks, everyone. I appreciate it, and I hope you guys enjoyed the class.